Welcome back to Ops and Outcomes. I'm Noelia. On this podcast, we talk about how work actually gets done at mission driven organizations. Today on the show, I have Melina Duarte. She is a wonderful person, and I'm so excited to share her story with you. She sits at the intersection of political campaigns, communications, and community development. If you're the kind of person that has been curious about how to put a campaign together or what it means to have a campaign strategy, she shares some really great tips. She also talks a little bit about her own personal journey. She is a wonderful example of someone who's been able to build a career that is centered around the things that she cares most about. So I'm really excited to have her on the show. Let's get into it. Hi, Melina. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Ops and Outcomes. I am so excited to have you here. You were one of the first people I thought of when I was making my little list of who I was going to interview because I feel like you have just an amazing career journey that is unique and that I think people need to hear about. So, welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I am honored that you had me on your list. We don't see what we don't see ourselves the way other people do. So I'm very honored to be on this short list of yours.
So we're recording this at the beginning of the new year, and there's so much that's like happening all the time in our space. And I think you sit at this like unique intersection of like policy and campaigns and community building. And that's why really I wanted to kind of have you on because I think you have this really unique perspective where you can kind of see into all those worlds and understand what nonprofit leaders and elected officials should really be thinking about when it comes to strategy and communications. So I'm really curious to kind of begin with like what prompted you to get into these areas, like this idea of impact work and kind of landing where you sit in that intersection.
I think it just happened actually. I know that growing up for me, I never saw anybody in this kind of a space. Like it just didn't exist. You fit into a box of you were a teacher, you worked for a municipality, you had a 9 to 5 career job. And I did that. I did that. I worked for the University of California with both at UC Irvine and UC Office of President for over 17 years combined. And so I had that career job and it didn't work the way I wanted it to work. I did it and I kicked ass. I don't know if I can say that here, but I did it and I gave all of myself to it. And then I didn't feel like I was getting from it what I wanted. And I was still doing all these things on the side. So it just kind of happened. I fell into it. My role at UC Office of the President got shifted to UC Davis, which then allowed for me to think of the next step. And I really thought I was going to get into the tech world because I lived in the Bay Area at the time and they were there. That
Mhm.
was my backyard. I visited all of the big tech companies, and every time I walked in, I was like, I don't feel like I fit here.
Mm.
And so then this kind of just happened. It really just happened. And I think as I've gone through it, I've been able to shape it to what I want. But I think that transition for me gave me permission to create what I wanted versus just fall into something.
I just feel like we're such kindred spirits because I feel like my journey kind of started in the same way. Like early on, I also was like, I had a traditional career. I was coming up through the nonprofit space. I got laid off. And then I was like, well, really, what do I want to
Yeah.
do? Like, is this really the thing that I want? And I thought like technology, I'm going to work in a big like tech firm or something like that, space. But I really was always connected back into the original work that I was doing in nonprofits and found a way to kind of marry the two together,
Yeah.
at least for myself with tech and nonprofits. But how did you kind of land within campaigns and policy?
So that was another one that I just fell into. I've been surrounded by people in politics for a long time, elected officials. I come from a very small town. All the elected officials are friends of mine that I've known for a really long time. And so just kind of being around that space, in the local politics, and then also through my work at UC Office of the President, I was in Sacramento doing stuff. So those two kind of joined together, and then the opportunity came up to actually run a campaign, and I was like, I can do this. And so I started, actually this is how it started. There was a big crisis happening here in the Coachella Valley with my school district, the school district that I grew up in. My English teacher was the president of the teachers union, and they were about to go on strike. And so I saw the communication that was being sent out. I saw the lack of communication that was being sent out. And I saw my friends who were the parents, their reactions to what was happening and their reactions to things they thought were happening. And so I contacted my teacher, my old teacher, and I said, "Hey, I think your messaging is off. I think you need to make sure to like make these points because that is being lost with the parents and the community. I get it. I get that this is what it means to you as a teacher, but when you're talking in terms of like hours paid and like point 0.5 da da da, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't even mean things to the teachers that are in those contracts. Like, I think you need to translate that into everyday layman's terms, like people, community language. And so that's how it started. And so we went through that day. We created this list, this newsletter that was like, this is what's really happening. This is what this means. And this is how it compares to other professions. So the fact that teachers have to continue to get certifications, do all these hours, that is comparable to a doctor, that is comparable to a police officer. So we need to have people comparing the teacher profession to the apples, not the oranges. You can't have people that are in medical assisting comparing their schedules and their work schedules to a teacher schedule. And that's what was happening, is that people were comparing it to their jobs that were very different jobs. They weren't necessarily career jobs, they weren't professional career jobs. And so just lining those up so that the community could see this is who we're comparing. And you never talk about when police officers are asking for a raise, and you never bring it up when, so that's what we did. And that's kind of how it started. And there was a big election for the teachers that year, the campaigns that they were supporting. And so that's how it started. And then it's just rolled from there. That was in 2014, I think. So it's been a
Okay.
while. And then it's just gotten
Yeah.
bigger and bigger and bigger. And I literally just fell into it because of that.
It's almost like you
That was when it was like, okay, now it's my time. Like, now it's my turn.
mm,
No longer am I
mhm.
behind the scenes, just no longer am I like, you should do this, you should do this. It was like, okay, we're gonna do this. Okay, so that was the transition from me just being behind the scenes to me being the forward facing, actually the person creating the strategy.
It's amazing because it's almost like you were stepping into this unique thing that you can do because it's actually like kind of a little bit of magic you just described there because I feel like not all leaders within organizations or within legislation or civic leadership really understand how to make that connection, right? Like there's all this talk about controlling the narrative, right? And I
Yes.
think people don't even understand like really what that means or what exactly are we trying to control and how does that play into like strategy and power and who's controlling what.
Yeah.
Especially I feel like in the past this year that we just finished up and moving into the new year, this idea of like controlling the narrative and crafting a narrative, like what would you give like points tips or of advice of like how people can really start to think thoughtfully about it, like you just described, to actually be able to land the message that they want to land.
So I always think of a person. Who is that person that I'm trying to get my message to? So I create in my head a profile of a person that's based on somebody I know. So for the teachers, one of the big things, or all campaigns, is like, who are your target? Let's look at the data. One, always look at your data, being voter data. Who's voting? Well, where are they? Where are they concentrated? What are their age ranges? Did they grow up here? Did they migrate here? Are they retirees here without kids? Like, what is the story of the voter? Who is that person? So that's what I always tell people. You have to create the profile in your head of who you are trying to get your message to and speak to that person. Pretend that you're speaking to that person in the messaging that's going to hit with that person. So, messaging is different for different people. Millennials are different. That's a very different messaging. I mean, the one, it's usually through a text message. You like have to get straight to the point. It has to have like less than so many characters, right? Like just abbreviated to the point, tell me.
Yeah.
Somebody older wants backstory. They want more information, but they want the information that is relevant to them. So it's always about who is that target person and create a profile in your head. And so even with any communication work that I've done, I've always said, okay, who are our target audiences and how do we communicate to them?
Mhm.
So your millennial, your younger person, what do they care about and how do we get a message to them? Your older person, what do they care about and how do we get a message to them? Because they're not texters. I mean, they've kind of become a little more texters. My mom was a super texter. But how are we going to land the message with the larger audience is always what I like tell people. You have to picture that person.
Oh, it's so important, right? And I feel like it's that's such a valuable little nugget there that I think people overlook, right? Like if you
Well,
think if we
yes.
when you talk to or my experience
Yes.
talking with nonprofit leaders, like they don't want to spend the time to actually have to craft those individual messages or even realize the segments that exist, right? So I tend to be more involved with the data element of looking at it and segmenting it all and then providing that information
Yeah.
to folks like you to be able to run with it, but they often want to just lump everybody together and treat them the same. And oh, it's just we got to get this email out and
Yeah.
just sending one big blast.
Or they're preaching to the audience, right? They're talking to the people that are already on board. So one of the big things about campaigns, I think what helps with a lot of communication things is who are you trying to target? Because your people that are with you, they're with you. You could say whatever you want. I mean, and I think where proof is in the pudding of what we're going through right now, right? You can do whatever you want, say whatever you want, however you want, and the people that are going to believe you are going to believe you. Like the ones that are diehard for you are going to believe you. The people that are against you, you're never going to win them over, right? It's really hard to win them over. It takes a lot of time and energy and resources to win them over. That's not really who you're targeting either. It's that middle person that hasn't really made a decision. That's who you're trying to attract. So that is not ever the people that are already in your camp. That's not so if you're messaging to the people that are already your yes people, then you've lost the mark too because that's not who you're trying to win over. You're trying to win over the person that's not in your camp yet. So that's a huge thing too is that people preach
Yeah.
to the choir. You're like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
telling me I believe you already. I already know I'm in this space. It's those
Yeah.
other folks.
It feels good, right? Because they're opening your emails or they're responding
Yeah.
or like you know that they've got your back. And so it feels good because you're getting that
Yes.
engagement
Yes.
from them, right?
Yes. Yes. But when it comes to voting, you're like, yeah, we already knew you were gonna vote. So that didn't mean anything for the numbers game.
How do you get people to really value these kind of strategies and approaches instead of just kind of running, running as we have always done? Like I imagine there's some like change management that you're kind of taking people through to really get them to see that it's important to put your strategy in place before you do your communications. How are you getting people to do that?
That is a hard one because, as you said, people want to run. They want to hit the ground running. They think, hey, we hired you. Tomorrow we're going to send this out. And, like, no, we got to stop and get the information. Showing
Mm.
people data is always eye opening for people. I worked on a campaign. I helped with the campaign of somebody who was a couple of different people who their whole strategy was they were going to do all of their communication to Spanish speaking audiences. And then when I showed them the voting, who votes, they were like, oh, I'm like, so even if you win 100% of that group, that's still only 5 to 10% of your voter base. So you can
Yeah.
spend all your time and energy and you can win them over when they're probably your yes people already, but that's not going to do make a mark on the larger numbers. So that the data, showing people the data usually helps then to frame that conversation about, okay, now let's talk about who these profiles are of these people and then create strategy based on that.
It's definitely like an in-depth process that you take people through.
Oh, huge, huge. Yeah, and
Yeah.
to get them like, okay, let's stop, let's regroup, let's create a strategy versus just like bam, 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 bam. That's not gonna help you in the long run. That could get you a few likes, a few things, but that's not gonna help you when it comes to anything, whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Wow. Well, that is one area of your wonderful expertise that you do. I would love to even hear more about some of the work that you do locally within your community. You mentioned that you are from Coachella, and I know that you're really ingrained and rooted there, and you do some great work with young people as well. I would love to hear like what inspired that, and I almost feel like that is just something that's really close to your heart that that you continue to do.
It is. Young people are my weakness always. Like if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, can you help me?" I will like stop, drop, and roll. Like I that's my thing, especially people that are from my area. Um I always feel weird saying mentor, mentee. I For me it just feels weird. Like I don't
Mm.
feel like, "Oh, I'm this mentor and they're the mentees and they're going to listen to." I started as I work with different groups here, I've started saying like, just call me Tia Melina. Like Tia Melina to me is like such a huge, huge thing for me, right? Like I have nephews, I have nieces, like that is where I feel like that's my biggest role in life, right? So
Mhm.
that's also I've also just started to do that. And so people say, "Oh yeah, one of your nephews," da, da, da," and I'm like, and then I'm like, "Oh yes, yes, I know who you're talking about." And so,
Mm.
I'll walk on the my high school campus, and people are like, "Dear Melina," and I'd be like, "Oh hey." So that for me, I think just makes it more personal. But working with students, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know these things when I was in high school, but as I've moved about in my career, in the world, in all of the things, there are things that we know now that we didn't. And so my thing is like, why do these young people have to wait to learn it 30 years from now? Like if we could teach them those things now, then they have a leg up. And so that's always been my thing. So I started reading applications just because I helped my cousin just reminded me the day her application was due. She's 4 years younger than me. She's like, "Yeah, don't you remember you came to my house?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I was in college, so it was due, but it was Thanksgiving break, and so I was home, and so I went and we like wrapped it up for her. That's really where it started. And then I started with my little cousins, and then people started asking me,
Mhm.
and so then it just became a thing. And helping tell stories is my thing, is one of my strong points. Helping to cut to the chase is also, I'm not a great writer, but I'm a really good editor. Going
Mhm.
back to like, who is your target audience? And I have read applications for both UC Irvine and UC Berkeley. I've gone through all those trainings, and as a reader I know what's going to catch my eye and what's good, like what I want to see and how I'm going to digest that information. And so that's what I help students with. And so working with the students here has always been my thing. Now it's actually grown because I have friends whose kids are now going to college, or so and so told me that so and so told them. I always ask, "How did you hear about this?" So and so that goes to church with my mom. Like it's now become a thing, which is so weird, but
And
it's
amazing. I mean, I don't
yeah,
know that
it's
I introduced it so well.
when I help them with like making sure they're taking the right things, they're doing the right things. Because people, like, I just heard the other day, like, "Oh, the National Honor Society," and I'm like, "Well, that's not really a big thing." Like, doing a project, working with an organization, that's going to give you more value than that. So I'm always working with students on that. But then helping them write their story is one of my big things. I just through this last application, UC application cycle, there was one of the young girls that I've known, and I've been working with the organization at the school. And so when I was reading her application, I was like, okay, so you just had this big thing happen. Like your name is on this big, huge lawsuit in the state of California. I read none of that in here. And so just helping them craft their messages where it's not what they think the sad story is going to win. My so and so's name, my neighbor passed away from cancer, and so this is why I want to be a doctor. Like that doesn't fly with anybody. It's not going to get you into anywhere. So helping to craft their stories that are authentic to them and highlight the things that they need to highlight. One of the cool things is because I am in the community, I know the things that they've already done to know what they're missing. But then even having conversations, I do like a little interview with folks and say, okay, tell me what you do outside of school, like outside of you playing, tennis and you going to class, like what else takes up your time? And so as they're telling me, I'm like, and this was not in your application. This was not in any of these essays. This was not reflected in any of this. So pulling that information and just helping them craft the story that's authentic to them, is one of the things that I like. I liked it's fun. It's
Yeah.
actually like, and I get to meet so many amazing young people that now, I mean, I've had people that I read the applications. They're like city council members. They're like all these places. So, and people like they don't realize how long I've known folks. I'm like, yeah, I read the college application. They're like, you did? I'm like, yes,
Oh,
I've been doing this for a long time. So yeah, working with
yeah.
young people is really big for me.
Oh, that is so special. And I feel like, just even imagining that that time that you spend with them is also even this. I know you shy away from the term mentor, but you're really influencing the way
Yeah.
that they even perceive themselves, right? Because they have challenges, even including some of those things, because they don't even value it until you say like, "You're amazing. Include this,"
Yes.
and
Yes.
you're helping shift their mindset, their perception of
Yes.
themselves, really helping them shine in a different way. And I could just imagine how connected they feel to you in the
Yes, that
future.
that opens the communication. It really does. And so I get to see them while they're in college. If I'm somewhere and I know that there's somebody there that I've worked with before, I'll say like, "Hey, I'm here. Let's go have lunch. Let's go have breakfast." So I do try to connect. There's a lot of them now, but I do try to connect with as many as I can. And but that really just opens the communication. And so when they have problems or they're running into issues or like decisions that they have to make, they do reach out and they'll say, "Hey, I have these two opportunities. Like, what do you think?" And so we'll have a conversation. So it does open up a line of communication with them, which is also really helpful, I think.
Mm, yeah. I really think this storytelling is like your superpower, right? Like you just described how you help shape stories for
Yeah.
campaigns and politics and the community, and then these individual people that you support as well. It's like you're just this the storyline there is you create stories in such an
And
amazing way.
stories that people will understand, right? Stories in the way that I think need to be told to be digested. So it's not just about creating stories and creating content to create content. It has to land somewhere. Who is it landing with? Who is your target audience and how does it land with them? That's kind of my big thing. And that, yes, it's the same. It's the same in campaigns. It's the same in college applications. It's the same with nonprofits trying to communicate. It's the same with fundraising. It's the same with everything.
Oh, I appreciate that so much in that it's not you're right, it's not just the story itself. It's gotta have the strategy behind it. It's gotta have the intention and the thoughtfulness behind it,
Yes.
or else it just is nothing. It just
Like que
out
chiste.
there.
You just wasted your
Yeah.
time. Que chiste. Yeah.
Right, right. Oh, and, there's a third component that I think of you when I think of you, I think of this, and it's such a powerful message that you have for women to be able to reclaim a word that has been, um, embedded in our history as a negative word, but you've spun it and you've turned it into something new for us. And so you created a whole brand around Chingona. And so I would love to hear more about what inspired that, and kind of what you have working in the works with that.
Sure. So, right, I just have these things laying around, right? So my contribution to this space is really this definition, and it's probably backwards on the screen because we're, cameras and science and all that stuff.
Oh, no, it's perfect. I see it
But
just
it's,
fine.
a mujer who is intelligent, fearless, and can get things done. Also see boss or badass. So this was something, the funny story. This was something I created in one of my procrastination moments. So I am a very crafty person and I I don't I was thinking of dictionaries and I was thinking of like definitions. And so that's, I kind of put this together and I sent it off to some friends and I was like, hey, what do you think? Like, I want to put this on a bag for myself. Like, I was just DIYing a bag for myself. And so I put it together and then I put it on a bag for myself. And then I posted it and people were like, where can I get that bag? And I've done a lot of merchandising for organizations. I've done all those things. I know how to order shirts. I know how to order like swag stuff. I know how to do all this stuff. So I sent it to a friend of mine that has a screen printing shop, and I said, "Hey, I want a small order, like not a huge 300, like just 50." And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So I ordered them and I didn't post anything. I just sent it to my friends that had said, "Where can I get that?" And they sold out really fast. And so then I ordered another small batch and I was like, well, I guess this is like a thing. So then I started this is actually a card, a blank card. So this is kind of the only thing that I really have going right now is these bunches of blank cards because everybody wants to write a thank you card to people. And so
Mhm.
I also like to hand these out to folks. So then it became like bags and then I put them on shirts, but then with this is one size fits all. You take it or leave it. You could pick different color envelopes, pero yeah. The canvas bag was it was purposely one color canvas. That's it. Yeah. The merchandising got real complicated when it was shirts because there's different styles, there's different sizes, which sizes sell more, which sizes sell less, then you're holding on to stuff. So as it grew bigger, then I started being like, yeah, this is not funny anymore. Like, this is actually a real job. And then I'm also very crafty, right? So the other thing
Yeah.
I started doing was like, it was Christmas. So then I put it on an ornament. And because I wanted to make this glitter ornament that I had seen on like Instagram somewhere or Pinterest. And then I put the letters on and then I started selling that in different colors. And so what works for me is what I'm into at the moment. That's not a
Mhm.
good that's not a good salesperson. People want what they want. They want to buy it when they want to buy it. They don't want to buy it when Melina thinks that that's what she's into at that moment. That's where that becomes a hard thing, right? When I'm like, I'm into this right now, so this is what I'm going to do, and then I'm over it, and then I move on to the next thing, and people want those things, and I'm like, oh yeah, that becomes. So I always that gets put on the best stuff. First thing that gets put on the back burner. The cards I always have because I've just printed bunches and then I just like batch them up. And every time I go somewhere, I just put them in my backpack. So that became a thing. But the other thing that started happening with that is that people then were like, "Oh yeah, it's the Chingona girl," and I was like, "No, my name is Melina." And so I kind of lost my identity. I'd be like, "Hi, Melina," and people were like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then I'd be like, "Oh, I'm," and then somebody else would say like, "Oh, she has this," and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, Chingona Definition." I'd be like, "Oh my god, I follow you," and I'd be like, "Yeah, well." So that was really hard was to lose my identity into that. So I also started kind of pulling back. So I just kind of like put out things when I'm in the mood for it, which is not a good business move, but for me it's an outlet and it's kind of it's still become a side thing. I tried to make it the primary and I did it for a little bit and then the retail space is hard. It's a lot of work. You're dealing with a lot of customers. It's very different. And so I kind of pulled back from that. So now it's still more the side thing than anything.
Yeah. Oh, well, that what you just described there just resonates with me so much. Like, I feel it so much because I'm also very much like a creative person in the sense that I love to use my hands to make things.
Yeah.
I love making my own clothes and like crafty things. And I think that's why I found you right away.
Yes,
um,
your
I-
skirts, your famous skirts. And I'd be like, did you make this one? Did you make this one?
yeah. Yes, and, the same thing, people were always just like, "Oh, you should sell them, these are great," and,
Yeah.
like, I toy with the idea, but, I'm like you in that, like, I like to make it once, and I love it, but I can't, like, make 100 of them, and
Yes.
imagine having to figure out how to, like, then get them on people and,
Yeah.
all of that, and so I've found that my joy then is also in teaching people to make or create on their own, and so I've sort of leaned into that element of it, but I do sit in these 2 worlds of, like, my technology and my what is perceived as professional, but my passion work within impact work, and then this more creative side of like more artistic. I'm creating, learning new crafts and sharing that knowledge. And it can be tough living, I think, in
Yes.
both worlds, or dividing our brain space or finding how we identify our energy with. Talk to me a little bit about how you've sort of navigated those two spaces, in your own personal identity and, like how you live.
So I think for both of us, we come from a generation where it's pick a side, pick one or the other.
Yeah.
You're this or you're that. We grew up very much. You are this, and you will stay this, and you will always be this, and because this is what you're strongest at. And so fighting that for a long time was hard because I've never seen myself as an artist because I'm not a hand drawer. I can't just freehand draw something. On digital, on Illustrator, I can pull up all this stuff. Hand drawing with like pencils or pens or paints, not my thing. Except that I did do that, but that was like a class. Um, so it's hard. It was hard to untrain myself to be like, no, you can do both. Where it is very helpful and not helpful at the same time is in campaigns because I'm doing strategy, but I'm also doing all the logo, the mail pieces, the all of the things, right? So that's helpful because it helps my brain. It gives me that creative release side in a very like crazy campaign time. But then I'm also the person that does all of the things, so that's where it's not fun. Um, but then there are times like right now, I'm in this space of like I need to create, and people are like, "Oh, what are you gonna do next?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I need to create." And I do know what I'm gonna do, and we could talk offline because you
Mm.
are the perfect person to help me with this. Um, but it's like, I go through the moments where I'm like, I need to create something. I just need to build, I need to do something. I need to be creative. I need to be crafty. I need to do because that I think for me helps to center to then clear my brain for the next things. And so I can't do one 100% of the time. It has to be both. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And it's also not a 50-50. It's a like whatever works for that
Yeah.
moment kind of deal. But yeah,
So
it
true.
took a lot of untraining and retraining my brain to be like, this is okay. You can do this. Like, but we come from a generation. I think the younger generation now, like that's built into them. For us, it wasn't.
Absolutely. I noticed that myself in that, younger folks that I talk to, it's really easy for them to describe what they do. And it's like slash this, slash that, and they're totally cool with it. And it doesn't
Yeah.
like phase them in any way. And like, I always struggle with like, okay, who am I talking to? What element of me do I share?
Yes.
And
Yes. Yes.
how are they going to perceive the rest of it? Like, let me, ease
Yes.
into it. A couple, when I started doing speaking engagements, I took the chance of putting it in my bio, like, I create my own clothes, and like my way to sort of secretly put it in there is like to always wear something that I made when I speak. But that's sort of like the extent of it. And then people kind of ask, the curious ones will ask, and so that's been really great. But generally, I do feel like I kind of still sit in two spaces, right? Like my Instagram is about, my crafting stuff, and my LinkedIn is about my tech work. So it is tough to like get your mind to be comfortable in both spaces for
Wait,
sure.
and the funny part is, who told us we couldn't do that, right? Like, who is the police of this?
I
So that's why
know.
I always tell people. I mean, and that goes back to the Chingona definition when I created that. It was great for our audience, but let me tell you that I hid that from my grandma for like 6 months because for her generation, she was not the target audience, and not only was she not the target audience, she was the audience I wanted to keep it away from. So I hid it from her until one of my tias said like, "Oh, look what I got from Melina." She was like, "Okay." So that's a whole nother story. We could have a whole conversation about that, about getting her on board. In the end, she was on board. She had ideas. It was a whole thing. Um, but really it was it and so one of the conversations I had with her about Chingona was she'd be like, "That's a bad word, esa no es," and I'd be like, "Pero quién dice? ¿Quién dice? Like, who made these rules? Who says this?" And she'd like, be like, "Pues," and I'd be like, "Pero quién dice? ¿Quién dijo que es una mala palabra?" And so it was a whole thing, and then finally, I think with anything, when you see the reception from people, that helps to validate things for you. And for in Chingona definition, for as an example, when she saw the reception at Hope, she actually went with me to sell one of the Hope things. And when she saw the reception of what this meant for people, and people were coming to buy, and it was like tons of people, and she was just standing there like, wow. I think that helps to change people's minds. So sometimes you just got to throw things out and see if they stick. That's what I always tell people too. Like, I have a lot of ideas and they don't all work and they don't all stick, but the ones that stick, they stick. And those are the ones you keep going after, but you don't know they're going to stick unless you throw it out there.
Oh, so good. 2 things there that, like, I'm just, like, I have to say this I have to tell you first a short story, and then I wanna ask you about ideas. But I bought several of your bags in the past. Anytime I have, like, a little cohort of leadership development, I try to give them the bags, and then I bought one for my mommy, and she kind of had, like, I gave it to her, and I was like, "Te vas a reír," and then she kinda snickered a little bit, and she was like, "Hmm,"
Uh
and
huh.
then we go shopping. I take her shopping every week, and she has all her little bags that we take with us, and, like, I was gonna put that one in the bunch, and she's like, "Ay, no, esa no, porque ¿qué van a decir?" It made her nervous
Exactly.
and uncomfortable, and,
Yes.
so she uses it for, like, her yarn. She has her yarn in it, and so it
Yeah.
stays at home, but she totally uses it, but
Yeah.
it made her snicker, and then, I was like, "Es que ella hizo una otra how
Definización. Yeah. Yeah.
see," and I would try to explain it to her, and she's like, "Yeah," and,
Yeah.
like, she gets it, she understands, but then she has that struggle of, like, "What will they say? What will people
It's a
think?"
different time. They grew up in a different time,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, it was a multiple conversations. Actually, one quick funny
Mhm.
story. Thanksgiving one year, I think it was Thanksgiving. It was some gathering at my family gathering. One of my younger cousins, she was sitting at the table. I went to go sit there, and she says to me, "Hey, Chingona." And my grandma looked at
Oh.
her and she said, and
Mm.
my grandma's very broken English. She's like, "That is not a good word." And I was like,
Mm.
"Peace out." And my cousin was like,
Mm.
"What?" And I was like, "Peace out,
Mm.
Sarah." But
Yeah.
it took a lot of time, but this was also when I came up with this, I think it was in 2016. This was at the beginning of this
Yeah.
kind of larger movement, right? This was one of the early, so that's why I had trouble with bringing this out. I think now if I was to have launched this in this day and age, it wouldn't be questioned. We're in a very
Dude, I
different
buy
time.
salsa that is called Chingona, and
Yes,
there's a
there's a
taqueria down the street
bar,
that's called
taqueria,
Chingona.
comedy
So
show, venture
yeah,
capital, all these
it's
things, right?
crazy. You're right.
It's a very different time than it was 10 years, 9 years ago, 2016. But it at that time it was about again, going back to communication and conversation and the asking the questions of who created this rule and why, and we are going to own this. Like, this is us telling you what this means. And this actually came from Hope. In Hope, when I was in the Hope Leadership Program, we were calling, like, as a way to prop each other
Shout out
up,
to Hope.
we were calling each other chingona, chingona, and people would be like, "Why do you say that? Why do you say?" It was either,
Mm.
"Why are you saying that?" or like, "Oh." And so that's kind of that's why I came up with the definition, because we were saying that a lot and people were asking, like, "Why do you say that?" Like, and so it was like, I'm going to tell you what it is. Like, this is why I'm
Yeah,
saying it. This is for
yeah.
me what it
This is what
means.
I mean when I say
This
it.
is
This
us
is it.
owning it and telling you, relabeling it to be like, no, this we're taking ownership and we're going to tell you what this means. And that was at the beginning. It's blown up. Yeah, it's blown up everywhere. Um, and I see people all the time and they're like, "Hey, you started this." I'm like, "I didn't start this. I came up with the definition." Like,
Well, you
this was
created
my
space
own.
for us to,
Yeah,
like.
and it was in a different time. And so
Mhm.
now it's a very different. So, but
Oh,
it's
so
good. It's
good.
good. I'm happy that
It's so
that
good.
we're in this space.
Yeah. Well, I want to circle back and ask you a little bit about how you bring your ideas to life. Because I think this is something that creatives struggle with, right? Like we'll have a lot of really wonderful ideas, and then for some reason we'll hold ourselves back from executing on them, or we just don't
Mhm.
know how to bring it to life, right? Like we're only the visionary and we're not the person that executes on things. Like how do you help people, or yourself or others, really bring ideas to life?
I think you have to strategize. I think you have to take a stop, sit down, figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish, who it requires to like what do you have to do to get there? What people it has to run through? Who needs to approve it? Whatever it is, whatever the thing may be. What are the gates that you have to get through? And then building the plan that way. Um, I'm a very just like you, I'm a very techie person. Not all of my clients are very techie people. So I think
Mm.
again, going back to communication styles, you have to figure out what the communication style is for the person that you're working with. So in putting things down, I use different applications for different people. I can like go I do like Trello. For me it works. For me it works because I like the way it column you can create columns or your little things and then your lists. But that's not good for everybody. Slack is I love Slack, but I found that that's more with groups, right? And that's not a one-on-one, so that doesn't work with everybody. Um the other thing is Google. I try to use what people use already, right? Because you're not trying to create another username, another application, another program for people that you lose your audience that way. So the other thing that I've started doing is, so once we have the idea down, there's always got to be a place. I call it a filing cabinet. Where is the filing cabinet that has the most updated logo, the most updated, so that it's not like, hey, can you send me? I like to park things in places. So if it's not parking it in Trello, I'll park it in a Google Doc, but then there needs to be like a short quick sheet. So what I've started doing is using like the link in bios. So we're used to now you go into the link in the bio and that has your link tree, right? That has like your shortcuts to all the things. So when I'm working with groups, I create one of those for them with a website that's pertinent to them so that they always can go through, and I create a QR code with it so that internal. I'm talking
Yeah.
internal communication
Mhm.
so that there's the QR code, it's the same place all the time, and that's where the latest and greatest information is. So whatever, if it's a form that we need for a campaign, like these are the forms you're going to need during these times, this link in bio will have them. So you're not having to dig. Email is like we have to figure this out. Email is the worst. So
Worst.
it's not digging through email anymore for me. It's not, I'm not wanting you to dig through email. That's a waste of everybody's time. So I create these link in bio. Bitly now does them. They're called bio pages or pages. They change the name on it all the time. So Bitly does them. You can create it, and then that's where I park. Like these are the forms you're gonna need. This is where the logo's at. All of those things are just parking places. They all go back to a Google Doc. They all go back to a somewhere. But that's where my clients can always find the latest and greatest without having to wait for me or without having to wait for somebody else. It's like you put them there, and when the people are ready for it, they know where to go. So that's kind of, once you've created the strategy, you have to create, okay, where are we going to put these things? Who is our audience that needs to have access to them, and how do we give them access on their time, not on our time, on their time? Um, and email, once you send a document, it's just like driving a car off the lot. It's lost, it's depreciated in value. So you can't be sending documents on email. Like it has to park somewhere that's constantly a Google Doc you can constantly update, or wherever you're pointing that, even on the Google Drive, right? As long as you keep naming that file the same thing, they're getting the latest version of whatever it is. So those Lincoln files have been very valuable for me. And then so that's internal communication and also external communication. So for campaigns, we always have a QR code somewhere that's where the QR code where even for that audience, This is where you go to register to vote. This is where you go to check to see where you're registered to vote. People move and they don't know where their last ballot was sent to. So here's the link. As people are going out and talking to folks, here's the link. Scan this QR code and you can see, verify where you're registered to vote. You can update your registration, your voter registration. So even those options change all the time depending on what the season is. Later, that becomes the, did your ballot get counted? Verify that your ballot was received. So instead of like sending emails or communications, it's always here. So your folks that are out on the field are saying, scan this link or go to this website. Those two things stay the same all the time from beginning to end. Those two things stay the same. And the options in the back are changing, and that's our responsibility to change them. So it works internally and it works externally.
What a great way to use that element of technology, right? Because you're so right. Like people already have that built into their brains that, this concept and understanding how to navigate a link in bio, right? It works and it resonates with the individuals just out in the world. So why not just leverage that in a new way, whether it's internal communications or external communications? I'm totally going to steal that because I think it's such a great idea. Like,
I
people
don't.
are always looking for documents, searching for
Yes.
things,
That was
and
I think I
it's
created it for me as a shortcut page. And
ooh,
then I started sharing it with people. I don't remember what project I was working on at the time. And then that's just become one of my stock things. I'm like, okay, this is
so
where
good.
we're always going to have the stuff. So it's not on a Google Drive. If you tell me go to
And it doesn't
Google
have to be
Drive,
like a big website or
no,
something,
it's just
right?
quick
Like
shortcuts. It's
yeah,
quick shortcuts
yeah,
because the Google Drive becomes a mess too. And then you like, it's in the Google Drive. Where, what folder, what version? Like
yeah.
these are just a lot easier to keep up with. As long it takes work for the person on the back end to make sure, but it's easier for me to post and update that link versus having to create an email with the wording to send it to everybody and da, da, da. No, it's done. And when you're ready, like it's always there. So I always tell folks, go there first. Check there first. It's probably there first. It's probably updated there. So that also saves time because they're not sending me an email or sending me, they check there and they have what they need and then they can do what they need to do.
So good. So, so good. Well, we've been on for quite some time, but I still have one more question that I want to ask you
Sure.
as we start to wrap up. Selfishly, as I have you on as a communications and campaign related person, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And me being more of a techie is around AI, right? Like how is it in your space? How are people receiving it? How are they feeling about it? Um, we don't get to hear as much of the policy talk, I feel like, around that subject area as much. And I feel like I wonder, are the conversations happening? Is it being integrated into the work? Like, what's been your sort of feeling and what's the vibe right now with AI and campaigns?
So for the last campaign round that so 2 years ago, 2024, right, was a huge campaign year. And so it's still, I think now is going to be, this cycle is going to be very different than it was 2 years ago. It's still a hit or miss because I know that we were working with it to like, okay, help me with messaging. I'm trying to message to this audience. This is what da 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 da. Da," And it would spit out stuff that I still was like I don't think this hits the mark. And probably because of the audiences that I'm working with also. So I'm working in communities that have two languages at least, right? Two cultures, and so AI doesn't always pick up on culture. I think it's gotten better. I AI does Spanglish. I've said, give me this in Spanglish, use Spanglish, or um can you like, here's what I'm wanting to write. Can you clean it up but keep the Spanglish so that it doesn't try to like create all like it in one language. And so it's
Yeah.
gotten good about that. But in terms of like messaging to people, I don't think all people are represented in those AI models. Rurals are still not being fully represented in those AI models that are being used to train chat GTP, for example. So that's the hard part. Like, I think you can use it as a starting place sometimes, and then kind of go with it from there. But you can't just get it and push it out. That's never going to work. Um, but then I think the other thing is you can also talk to people. So there's the whole like sustainability of AI, right? And what it's doing to the
Yeah.
environment and all the water
Mhm.
usage and all of that. So I think we need to use AI responsibly, for like, okay, this I'm just I can't, like, I've tried to do it all these other ways and I need that input. Um but not just for every single thing, right? Like that's where all this water usage is coming from. So and even hire a graphic person. Don't just do an AI, because those sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not. But you also don't do have a photo shoot. Don't just do this AI thing. Like, have a photo shoot with a candidate. Like, do all of those things in person. Like, you can also see authenticity, I think. And so this cycle, I think we're gonna be able to really see who's authentic and who's has an AI driven campaign. I think we're gonna see a
Mhm.
lot more of that.
Yes, and people really want that personalized. It's so tough because authentic feels like it doesn't even express it fully what we want, right? But that human authentic connection with one another, it's like that's what we all like really, really want. And yet we are fascinated and see like the potential and the value that like an AI tool can bring. But it's almost like just because we can do it doesn't mean that we need to, right? Like,
Yeah,
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 why not do a photo shoot? Why
yeah,
not sit down and
yeah.
write? Why not have a conversation?
Yep.
You know, we can do those things still. It's
And they
not a
don't
bad thing.
all, yeah, they don't all cost like a big amount of money. Like, you could still budget for those things. Your budgets should
Yeah.
be reflective of your priorities, and that should be one.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Oh, Melina, it has just been a pleasure talking
Oh,
with
I'm so
you.
excited for this for
Oh.
you. This is great.
Oh, well, thank you for being on again. If folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you? Your link in bio, where should they go?
So LinkedIn, Melina Duarte on LinkedIn. Email is hola, HOLA, at melinaduarte.com. Those are probably the two best ways to find me, because Instagram, all these other, like, I'm bombarded with bots. Actually, I get attacked by the bots.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
those
I'm in
bots.
that space. I'm at that level where I'm getting attacked, where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. But
Oh,
yes.
well, thank you again. And it's just been such a pleasure. You're such an inspiration.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be in this space with you, and I'm happy you thought of me for this. And I mean, you and I could just like talk for hours and hours on all the different things, because we are the techie, the consultants, the creatives. So yeah, we're eye to eye on so many things. So I'm really
Oh, I
happy
love it.
to see you in this
Yes.
space and to watch all these shows that you have.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for spending time with me today. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can find me on LinkedIn. And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app and subscribe there. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a comment with your thoughts. Share it with a colleague who might be in a similar spot. And please consider leaving us a rating and review. That helps other nonprofit leaders find the show. Thanks again. See you next time.